historical viewpoint, it is incredible. And our first order of business on today's grand tour is a look at the gardens. You are going to love this, so stay with us. Come on along. As I walk along the veranda here into the garden area, the first thing that is really striking, of course, are the myriad of colors here. These flowers are just magnificent. And of course, it takes somebody to keep them looking like that. And that somebody is with us now, Randy Lance, who is the caretaker or curator. What do you call yourself, Randy?
Facility operator is the official title, but...
Sounds very high-tech. I guess that's good for today's world.
Right. Well, welcome to Coral Gables Merrick House.
Well, thank you very much, and thanks on behalf of our audience as well. There are some beautiful flowers here. Are these all native?
No, in fact, some of them are native, but some of them are just old-fashioned favorites, like Althea Merrick might have grown.
How about this one?
This is called a Cleome, and it's quite a beauty in the springtime in 3 different colors, and it comes up to about 6 feet high. It's really quite nice in as the middle of the beds, and then we have the shorter flowers grouped around
I
them.
see one down here.
That's the
it's kind of a puffy. It looks like a powder puff almost.
Right. That's the blue ageratum. They come in various varieties, from very short to very tall, and different puffinesses.
Different hues as well? That is slightly on the purple side.
Right. But they are beautiful, and to get some blues in your garden, it makes your reds and your other colors stand out better.
And how about these white flowers?
This is a Penta. This is quite a nice perennial shrub, actually, and it grows for several years and makes quite a nice show.
Now you have the little yellow flowers. They're so pretty. They're so vibrantly yellow as well.
Now there's our native. That's our native Coreopsis. That is in fact a state wildflower. Our garden club, especially in Coral Gables, has been promoting the Coreopsis and promoting the planting of it because it was officially adopted as the state wildflower, and it's quite a pretty plant.
You know, as we move through the gardens, and I know you know this as well, there is nothing man can make that even approximates the colors in nature. They're absolutely vibrant colors.
They are.
So you have an Easter lily here.
Easter,
is that what they're called?
Easter lily.
Look
and
at that.
Smells just as pretty.
Really? Let me try that.
Absolutely wonderful.
It does smell wonderful. My cameraman, Glenn Lewis, would do well to rub that on himself after he's been working hard on one of our SNAPSHOT shows. Glenn, don't forget the plant. Can we borrow one from Glenn later?
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll borrow one for Glenn later. As he leaves, he's just leaving, he's walking off the set, folks. This is not a set. This is really where we are here in the gardens at the Coral Gables Merrick House as we move on. This is beautiful.
Yeah, welcome to the inside of the Merrick House.
Well, thank you. Is it commonly called the Coral Gables Merrick House, or just the Merrick House, or the Coral Gables House, or what?
It's commonly called both, but the official title is Coral Gables Merrick House, so we get them both in, and by proclamation.
This floor is really striking.
It is. These are the Dade County pine trees that once grew on this land. The Merricks had them sawed after they cleared their land.
Right from here, they used the trees that actually grew here to make this?
That's right. There was no Ace Hardware in 1899. You just couldn't go buy lumber and nails. And
had to be a very hardy person to do a lot of things yourself.
Exactly, the pioneers.
And they did beautiful work as well.
Right.
The first room I see over here, what is this called?
This was Althea Merrick's bedroom. It's the choice southeast bedroom of the house, and you catch the breezes, and it's the master bedroom.
Hey, what do you think? Let's go. Come on, let's take a look. As we walk into Althea's room, how much of this is actually authentic, Randy?
It's all totally authentic. All the furniture, it's called her Victorian bedroom, and the needlepoint chairs were all old chairs back then, and in the 30s, Ethel Merrick did those nice needle points and reupholstered them.
And here's the dress.
A dress of the 20s period. We have a number of family garments on display in the house. The interesting thing about Althea Merrick was, aside from the full-time job of being mother of the family, she was quite an accomplished artist. She did all the paintings in this bedroom. And she also designed the house. And this is before Mediterranean Spanish architecture took over, and this was back in 1902. She used a little Massachusetts colonial style in the home with the columns all around, and she designed that wide veranda. And back in the days before air conditioning, that would help keep the house cool, simply because the overhang shades the nice rock walls all day long. And the sun...
Indeed it does. Indeed it does on the veranda. When I walked into the garden earlier, I noticed that at no place was I in the sun.
Right.
So it wasn't by accident that that happened.
No,
Very carefully designed.
That's
Much
the design.
Like almost looks like the edge of a picture frame architecture around here.
All right.
All the houses in the Gables that were built in this era seem to have this type of fancy woodworking.
That's a picture frame molding in an artist family. You'd move paintings around constantly, and
You mean they hung it from there?
the paintings hung from there, a little brass hook, and then the painting hangs on a string or a cable.
Nowadays, we try to hang a painting and the plaster falls out of the wall.
Right.
Not so in those days.
No.
Things were made very substantially.
In fact, the plaster is over an inch thick here. It's built up with a thick layer of mud with horsehair in it, and then it has over a quarter of an inch of white coat on top of that. So if you started pounding into that plaster, it would be a substantial hole, and then the repair would be interesting.
Very interesting. And horses aren't near as easy to come by nowadays.
That is
Looking
very
over
open.
here, this is the dresser.
Right. Victorian piece,
Original?
original, nice black
Beautiful
walnut,
shape.
brass hardware.
Well, let's go over here and take a look. Randy, the wicker chair is just like furniture we see today. Is this authentic to that time period?
Yes, we have a whole bunch of old wicker. Some of it's been restored, but it was very popular then, and in fact, it was very light and could be taken out on the veranda. People spent a whole lot of time on their porches and verandas.
And of course, they built them out of the sunlight.
Exactly. It was a nice, cool place to sit and enjoy the gardens, and you could even visit with your neighbors as they passed by and read the paper.
Really a different time, wasn't it?
Yes, before television and air conditioning and so forth.
Oh, wait a minute. Before television? He didn't mean that. He didn't mean before television. We're going to edit that out anyway, so that's not going to be a problem.
Before,
I'm sorry, go right
before
ahead.
cars.
Before cars, yes, that's good. Before cars. But seriously, looking here at another dress, really held up. Held to the test of time, didn't it?
Well, that's in pretty good shape. It's got a few little problems, but the 1890s, and you can see people covered up a lot.
And of course, this place was built initially in 1899.
Right.
And then the front portion that we're in 1902.
Correct.
Looking here, I see dear Althea in a wicker chair.
Yeah.
There she is reading, obviously reading the TV guide, trying to find out just when SNAPSHOT comes on.
Very, very bright lady.
Authentic here?
Yes, more black walnut and brass and marble tops throughout, and very, very high quality items that you don't
they all
see
look-
today.
Is this marble?
That's marble.
No Formica here.
No Formica, no plastic, no fiberboard.
Okay,
It's
as
all
we move
solid.
on, come along with us. There's lots more to see here at the Carl Gables Merrick House. Randy, as we walk along the main hallway here on this beautiful Dade County pine, I see two other rooms here. The one over here is very similar to the one we were just in.
Oh, this is one of the daughter's bedrooms, and we have several Denman Fink portraits here of Helen Merrick, George's younger sister. We have George's wife inside, Eunice Merrick, and then a portrait of Denman Fink's daughter.
And over here, it looks like some kind of an office.
It was George Merrick's room when he was a boy, and we've redone it as his
And, you know,
office.
all of you really need to come see this. We don't have time to show you everything here on SNAPSHOT. And of course, the location of this place is 907 Carl Way, and what are the hours of operation?
We're open Sundays and Wednesdays from 1 to 4 p.m. for tours.
Okay, let's go into the main living area.
Good.
Randy, as we enter what is the old section of the house, we can even see the seam here in the floor. Take a look at the seam.
Right.
Can't believe it, but it's right there, and it's joined together floor to pine to floor to pine.
Correct.
And I see here there's a picture of some person in there in this very area. Hasn't changed much.
No, it's exactly the same in many respects. Some of the arrangement of the furniture is slightly different, but you can see the fireplace and the couch.
Couch
and the
is the
piano.
same. Perhaps the carpet is the same as well. And of course, in the bottom left of the picture, you can even see the seam, because the wood looks much different here circa 1940 before it was cleaned. Obviously, it's been cleaned up now with perhaps new high-tech cleaning agents that they didn't have in those days. By 1940, the house had already been many years old, the original part.
Right.
Very beautiful chairs. This is very thick cloth on these chairs as well. I noticed a beautiful painting up here. Looks like a barn.
That was the barn for the plantation. It stood on Castile Street, and that was painted by young Richard Merrick when he was a 13-year-old boy. Some days he would like to stay home from school to paint, and his mother recognized his talent and would allow that. And on one of those days off from school, he painted the barn.
Did he ever do anything with art after this?
As a matter of fact, for 50 years, he was an art professor at the University of Miami, and we have many of his students return here to see family pieces and so forth.
It's beautiful, 13 years old. That's absolutely incredible.
It is.
What are these?
These are a pair of French desks that belong to Eunice Merrick, and the beauty of those is all the wood inlay, the marquetry in them. And
Looks like they were handmade. I guess in those days we didn't have the machinery that we do now. There wasn't the high-tech prefab look that we see in so much, unfortunately, we see in so much of our furniture today. Everything was done by hand. It was made to last. And it's obvious by the fact that it is here that indeed it has lasted. The fireplace looks monumental. It looks
yeah,
there's no artificial fascia here.
no,
This is all
it's all good old solid oolitic limestone, and
known as coral rock.
right, and this was in that old 1899 wood house, and kept them warm through those winters back then. And
Is it operational?
oh yeah,
Could light it up.
could light it up.
Yeah. Over here we have an old 20s vintage Marconi, I call it, an old radio.
And that water Kent, that's correct.
In the corner, the Graphonola by Columbia. And I see there's an old gold star disc that's on there right now. Well, this is a beautiful place, and of course punctuated by the piano. Almost wish I could go over there and play it, and I'm sure Glenn wishes that I don't go over there and play it. But anyway, we're going to move on now to the sunroom. Well, even I know that this is Cuban tile. I have seen it at the Biltmore. I have seen it in other homes in the same era. And even slightly later, it's when we could get tile from Cuba.
All over any of the 20s buildings in South Florida, you're likely to find some good old Cuban tiles.
Another fireplace. Is this operational?
Yes, it is. And this was the second fireplace added because they found that this rock house, so protected from the sun, will stay very cold in the wintertime. So a second fireplace that helps take off the chill. And quite necessary if you've experienced the weather in here.
Yeah, and of course this was in those days in the middle of a huge grove. We'll see more about that in another room that we're going to in just a moment.
Right.
And you have the wicker chair right next to the veranda.
Exactly.
And to give the audience a reference, the wicker chair is sitting next to the veranda from which I entered the garden at the beginning of our show.
And like we said, people had used their verandas and porches considerably back then, and a wicker chair is nice and light. A child can drag it out there and enjoy the gardens and the breeze.
I understand that this house is available for community meetings and so on.
We're available to nonprofit organizations to rent for meetings and parties and receptions.
Hey, that's good to know, isn't it? Well, this is, it's a beautiful area. And the next area here is one of my favorites because I love to eat. We're going into the dining room.
Getting
Come along
hungry.
with us. Oh my gosh, look at these chairs. These would have to be handmade, am I correct?
Yeah, those were
Look at this.
Kittinger manufactured black walnut dining room set that belonged to the Merricks, and it's just a beautiful set. And
Velvet.
and where will you see black walnut today?
Well, not
In a
around.
museum.
Yeah, that's right. Not around Dade County in general.
Right.
And the tablecloth reminds me a whole lot of the doilies that I used to see in my grandmother's house years ago.
Yeah, that's right. Our old lace tablecloth.
Well, here's a china cabinet.
China cabinet with some of the Merrick's old pieces, and
Oh, those are actually part of the collection.
yes, they are.
You know, one of the things about this place is that you have so many authentic items. That really adds to the whole aura of the place. And talking about aura, I have to ask you a question. Are there any inhabitants of this place?
Well,
Apparitions, perhaps?
some have heard footsteps in the night. We don't know. I've never heard anything or seen anything, but others have.
Ever see anything?
Not
Other
per-
people?
No, they've heard footsteps is what I've heard. But that's between you and me.
Yeah. Don't tell anybody. I think we might have to end this show early if I hear any of these footsteps. Well, moving on over here, here's some very old-looking plates.
Well, in fact, that is a rare item. Henry Flagler built the Royal Palm Hotel back in 1895 and 6, as soon as he completed the railroad into South Florida, into Miami, and constructed this huge hotel on the banks of the Miami River. And that is one of the plates from their dining room, and probably on that plate some of the Merrick produce was served, because in the old days George would take wagon loads of fruits and vegetables down to this hotel to sell to it.
Well, because this was a very productive plantation here.
It was, and they grew all the winter vegetables, tomatoes, beans, squash, eggplants, peppers, and mainly grapefruits.
And of course, we still see a lot of it growing here on the grounds as we walked around earlier. And again, you know, this is a place you're going to have to come to yourself, because there is absolutely no way that we can show you everything there is to see here at the Coral Gables Merrick House, again at 907 Coral Way in the heart of Coral Gables. This is pretty. This is very much like the chairs, hand-worked, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
How about the painting, Randy?
That's a shorescape done by Althea Merrick in the old days, and quite a nice painting. She was very good at landscapes.
The whole family kind of had some creative streak about them, didn't they?
They did, and George especially, the way he created this city is just incredible, and has stood the test of time, and is now the grandest place in Dade County to be, and
No question about it.
no question.
Looking at the ceiling, they don't have squared colors. They don't have squared corners, rather. Kind of reminds me of Frank Lloyd Wright, that makes everything rounded. Any reason for that you know of?
The way the shingle roofs were built back then, and the way the interior structure of the roof, that's the way it came out. It kind of reminds me of a ship, but
This
Frank
room
Lloyd's
is not inconsequential to the house. This was a very important area. What happened?
right. As tiny as it is, it was a very important room, because this was Solomon's plantation office, and he was the congregational minister and wrote his sermons in there. But what's more, he figured out his crops and his debts for the farm and plantation. And
It has windows like a box office almost.
right, and on payday, all the Bahamian laborers that came and settled in Coconut Grove and worked the plantation, they would line up at the window for their pay.
Well, many of the Bahamians actually settled here afterwards.
Exactly. Well, they're still here, and there's many of them still work for the city.
This is truly a magnificent place. Of course, the kitchen's off over there. As we continue on our grand tour, and of course taking you along at the Coral Gables Merrick House. Don't go away. Well, after that beautiful tour of the dining room, I took the liberty of going upstairs, where I found Althea's studio and had a really good opportunity to see the gables of this house, where actually is the derivation of the city of Coral Gables name. Am I correct, Randy?
That's exactly right.
Okay, well, we're headed back outside to take a look at something else. What's coming?
I want to show you how we take care of our trees and our garden
You just put water on them, right?
No, we feed them organically. We sort of do it almost the way the old timers did.
Really? And does it really make a difference in how they grow?
Oh, they're healthy. It works great.
Okay, let's go outside. Come on along with us.
Good. Okay, Alan, let's have a load of tree chips.
Gosh, you know, I'm a TV host, Randy, and you know that's my job. I never thought that I'd be pressed into service carrying. What is this that I'm carrying?
These are tree
You tell me
chips.
it's compost, you're going to be in trouble.
No,
What is this?
This will be compost. Right now, it's fresh tree chips from our good old Farron's Tree Service.
Okay.
And it's good exercise, and it's great for your garden.
Well, maybe you think I need exercise. I saw your pitchfork, and I was thinking, what the devil did you have me doing this for? Did you get that, folks? What? Forget it. Okay. Obviously,
What we have here is a little young dancy tangerine. It's about it's been here about 11 months. We planted it last summer when it was only knee high, and this will show you that citrus is not a slow grower. And what we've done with the entire grounds is gone back to an older-fashioned method of maintaining it.
and what is that?
It's basically the organic method. The old-timers in Merrick's day used bat guano, cattle manure, wood ashes, and probably some leaves and whatnot. We've gone a step farther now. We get into compost. We use manure.
Well, I see you have a number of bags here, and you have some
And-
other stuff in the pails.
Right. And we use some rock phosphate, which is phosphate rock mined from the ground but untreated. We use that directly around our trees.
Now, what kind of ground do we have here in terms of sand or rock or whatever? What's in the ground?
We
here?
have about 2 feet of sand over rock here.
Is it oolitic limestone here, just
Oolitic
like
limestone.
the quarries at Venetian Pool?
Exactly.
By the way, from which this house was originally made, and we have a picture of that as well, when the house was in its infancy, or
Right.
actually when it was just built.
You go a little farther south, and that's all the ground is just the oolitic limestone. There, the people have had to turn it into gravel or dig pits and fill in with sand
Yeah, hard to dig in.
to get some growing medium.
Indeed.
It is. But what we've done with the entire grounds is gotten away from the chemical fertilizers, which are very soluble and very fast acting. That's why you get an instant green. But that solubility, they also wind up in all our waterways, our bays, like Florida Bay, and they also make the water plants grow very fast and overgrow.
And that's bad.
That's bad.
And of course, it could get into our water supply as well, and that's bad.
In our groundwater, correct. We don't want it in our groundwater. Nitrate poisoning is a common occurrence in agricultural areas where a lot of nitrates hit the ground.
Okay, so what's the benefit to us as consumers of water and food by using this type of material as opposed to some of the other chemical fertilizers?
Well, all around, it's better for the environment. Two, we're adding back a lot of the micronutrients to the soil that the fruits and things will take back out and that we're going to eat. So we're getting a more complete fruit or vegetable from the soil that we build organically in nature's way. And what we're using is a lot of free materials or very reasonably cheap materials, like our tree chips are free, some of our manures are free.
So it's the ultimate really in recycling when you come right down to it.
Exactly.
Which, of course, all of Dade County is involved in, and many other counties.
We're closing our cycles of waste from our sludges, from our sewage plant that goes into the ocean that should be going back onto our land, to a lot of our organic garbage that's going to a landfill which should be going back onto our land.
So this business about recycling is, first of all, it's not something that people are just blowing their horns about, blowing smoke about, but it's something that really needs to be done if we're going to survive.
Exactly.
And this is your contribution.
Right.
So what do you do with this stuff?
All right, well, as far as our lawn treatment, every once in a while we dust it with sludge, which is composted sewage sludge. For our normal trees, our native trees and so forth, we just use some tree chips around it as a mulch. And as they break down, they supply nutrition.
So instead of just throwing this stuff away into a garbage dump somewhere, you're actually using it to produce food.
Right. And then for our fruit trees, like our citrus, we want an extra supply of nutrients to keep it fast growing and to keep it productive.
And I'm going to move this out of the way so the folks can see that.
All righty,
Here I am violating my contract as a television host, hauling a wheelbarrow, which is kind of fun. It is good exercise. A seashell.
A seashell. That's from an old compost addition in there. When we first planted the tree, we added some compost to the hole, and the surrounding circle covered it with tree chips. Now this is the yearly re-nourishment of the tree.
Wow.
So what we have here,
let's dump it.
What we have here is a bag from our local pony ride place.
Oh, yes, indeed it is.
And this is straw and wood chips and pony pellets. And this adds a lot of nitrogen and a little bit of phosphorus. Okay, we put a couple inches of that around.
It's odorless.
It's odorless. We also have some dehydrated manure, which is much more concentrated.
Okay.
We just use a little dusting of that.
Oh, yes.
And there's some more nitrogen. We have some kitchen compost. This is made of tree chips and kitchen waste that we make, and it's most nutritious.
Really unbelievable.
It's totally full of earthworms.
You know, I've never really seen organic farming as such, and this is quite an interesting process. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. We thank you so much here at the Coral Gables Merrick House for having us on this, what has been a grand tour. Thanks for your demonstration and your interest in the environment as well. And thank you for joining us on this edition of Snapshot here from the Coral Gables Merrick House. Until next time, I'm your host, Alan Wolfe, reminding you, keep your focus right here on Snapshot, and we'll see you next time. Thanks again.
You're welcome.